Welcome to Science Base Camp's first workshop on what are investors expecting from science-based teams. And I'm really honored to have Donatas Keras from Practica Capital joining me. Hello.
Hi guys, pleasure to be here.
And also Rainer Stenfeld from Nordic Ninja joining me. Hi, Rainer.
Hi, Kalev. Great to be here.
So before we start the discussion, I wanted to set the expectations and talk about the good and the bad and the ugly about deep tech investing in Europe. Just to set the tone, that I take deep tech as high risk R&D risk and high product market risk type of startups. That makes them different from just innovating startups who have more of or equal product market risk, but not so high R&D risk. What's different between regular startup and deep tech startup is the path that in case of deep tech startups, the time it takes to actually get to the product level is much longer, and you can't get market feedback as early as is case of a regular startup. What's good news is that due to AI and increases in talent pool, actually for investor side, the deep tech is now exciting because you can scale it faster than it was possible before. And that makes investors excited because even if it takes longer to develop, time to market is still getting closer to the regular startups. Important issue is that investors are not investing into technology. Investors are investing into deep tech companies, and they want you to build the next one to this list of highly valued European deep tech companies. And important to bring out what's the role of a deep tech investor, that we come in the midst of prototyping phase and help to go to market, where we give it over or to the more general VCs who are not maybe deep tech specific, but as investors, we can't start investing very early. Usually, most funds can't afford it. And the good side is that actually in Finland and in Estonia, investors are investing into deep tech companies. Estonia is among top 16 in Europe regarding a share of investments going to deep tech, and Finland is among top 3, which is really good news. So the bad news is that investors don't give you much credit for building a deep tech startup. That by this study, it's they looked at over 1,000 startups who got invested, who got funding between 2010 and 2015, and in the early stage, you see that deep tech is green and tech startups are blue. That the amount they were able to raise in stage in a seed stage after the seed stage, the A and B rounds was about the same as for the deep tech and for the tech startups. And the bad news for the deep tech is that raising the next round takes longer, as your development, your progress is not as fast as in case of tech startups. And the good news is that when you finally get to like a seed, Series C, then you can raise much more than traditional tech startups. But the beginning, you don't get any slack. You get equal amount of money, and you have to do more with less, kind of. Just to give you a broad understanding of what I'm talking about, seed stage, Series A and Series B. This is what have been averages in Europe. Keep in mind that this is median, meaning that half of the startups got much less than this, and half of startups got more than this sum. The bad news is that Europe is still behind compared to US, that in the Bay Area, the seed rounds are about twice the size as in Europe. So you have to keep in mind that our deep tech investment scenery is not that on that level. What is investor betting on? This is the answer to a question: what should I present to investor? In a seed stage, investor is betting on a team. Now, this is a team who can actually make it, and in Series A, you should have already traction. So investor is betting on traction, that those guys have got feedback from market. They have paid pilots. They have something going on. There's evidence that problem is real and the solution works. And in Series B, investor is betting on revenue, that you understand how to increase the revenue, where it comes from, where are the margins, your unit economics is fully there, and your business model is working. So you have to keep that in mind also when we talk about what investors are expecting. And in the beginning, there's this paradox that if you take the attraction and your team, then if you are number one in the world, you are well known, investors are willing to give you some slack, that they are willing to invest when you don't have much traction yet, because you have a great track record, you are awesome, well-known guy. If you don't have that, if you are not famous number one in the world, you don't have prior experience in building deep tech startups, then damn, you must show more on the traction side. You must have done something. You must have some insights, some paid pilots. Something should be going on that which compensates for investors the lack of experience. And I did quick interviews with investment funds participating today in Science Based Camp. And this is a collective knowledge, what the investors are expecting from deep tech startups. First, from team side, they want to see passion, that it's going to be hard run. So they want to believe that you just don't quit after the first challenge. They're looking for experience in building not only the tech, but also the company. And what's your vision of building businesses, building the business, because investors are not investing into tech, they're investing into tech companies. The traction, is it a real problem? Have you got some feedback? Do you have unique insight to the market that nobody else has? Is the market big enough? Is it addressable market size that you could possibly reach out and get the payments from? Is it in billions? Is there a meaningful business model? And I know that this is what Rainer likes, especially, that can you earn money when you sleep? Is there a possibility to build such business model? Technology, is it unique, scalable, which is important part, that just selling one unit at a time and earning money from single units, it's hard, very hard in most cases. And scalability of earning from software, from licensing, from monthly fees, that makes it much more interesting. Excitement. Do investors understand your business, and would they be willing to get involved in helping you to grow it? That unless they don't understand it, it's very unlikely that they are excited and are willing to join in. and impact, it's becoming more and more important that the company you're building, it's helping to build a better society, that investors don't like to invest into deep tech, which is using human weaknesses or which is increasing consumption. So this is my quick summary. I would like to go to you, Donatas, that Practical Capital is investing into seed stage and Series A. In seed stage, roughly around 200,000 and in Series A, something up to 2 mil. In your case, in order to be like investable, how much research to be done you accept still that you are willing to invest, even though you see that for the next 2 or 3 years, those guys are going to be in the lab, that there's not much point going out to speak to customers because there's not yet much to talk about with the customers.
Sure, good question. So probably we can refer to technology readiness levels scale, right, and TRL. Probably everybody's familiar with that. So I would say that, we should start at number 5, at level 5 to talk about investment. And, when we look into deep tech, deep science companies, usually 200 is not enough. And we even don't start with that, right? So we know that, it's something much more is needed. So if we cannot deploy more capital in the company, and probably this is not something for us. And so TRL number 5, it's level 5 or 6 better, right? It's great start. And we do understand that it might take 2-3 years staying in lab. However, we would love to hear talks and to understand the real market needs. So you can go and talk with people even when you just have, theoretical prototype in your head or just something in your lab tested or whatever you do. So I would say that 200 is not enough. TRL number 5 and talk straight away and try to understand your customer needs, from day one. So that would be an answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just wanted to add from that, elaborate from that sometimes science-based team says that I need, like my first investment, I need 1 mil or 2 mil. That I don't have, I have this proof of concept. I've talked to some customers and investor says that it's too early, that I'm not willing to give you, like 2 mil, that let's talk about 500,000. The startup says that with 500,000, it gives me a runway of 5 months. Then I should be raising again. But how come that it's not feasible? What's your suggestion in such cases?
So I'm not seeing that black and white, right? We're blessed in our region to have so much grant schemes, European funding and governmental funding. So most of the tech companies we invested, deep tech companies, we had grants which fulfilled their budgets, right? So usually we have a budget for next 12, 16 months, up to 2 million or even more, combining all the possible funding sources. So this is my advice. If you can raise just 200 or 300, it's no point because you're gonna be back to fundraising in 3-6 months, and it's a vicious cycle. You will continue to turn, and probably not enough time to build a company or a technology. So you should be able to put enough funding to reach some meaningful results straight away. And this is 12, 18, 24 months. And I know that every company which is for real in deep tech and science, it definitely can get a grants. And sometimes we are missing this private part, and this is where VC can really come and help. So that's the usual case, in my opinion, in our part of the world, and how deep tech companies usually get funded and get from the ground. Of course, sometimes even 200 is really helpful just to put some things, but usually it comes from angels or very brave or smart or crazy sometimes investors rather than institutions, because institutions usually want to see a bit more. So it's no point raising a very small amount. It makes sense to work and put a lot of funding sources in one place and to have enough budget to run at least for 12 or 16 months.
Thank you. Rainer, I go to you. That Nordic Ninja invests in Series A, Series B. when there should be already some traction. Like, what's your suggestion how to prove traction if like development still takes time? Is like interviews or letters of intent good enough for an investor to prove that if I get this product finished, then it will fly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Thanks, Kalev. Very bluntly, LOIs are quite worthless, to be honest. And there's a reason why we say traction and not revenue, because traction can mean many things. And I think that, you know, when you earlier said that, you know, in the beginning it's all about the team. I think it's in deep tech, it's about the team all the way. I mean, in every good company, it's about the team. But in deep tech, in the early stages, when you can't really show revenue, recurring revenue, and traction in terms of like pilots, then you have to evaluate something else, and that is, you know, really talking to the customers, being able to understand what type of experiments do you need to run, what have you learned so far. And if your mindset is all about finding out what's true in the marketplace, not proving that you are right, then I think it gives, you know, the investor a confidence that by allocating capital, you can help. And I think when we talk about deep tech, it is very hard to overlook the importance of the VCs as well as a partner, as an extended part of the team, mainly because, you know, there's so much money floating around, but that's not really all you need. And it's very hard for us to make an investment, or for me, it's very hard to make an investment if I don't know anything about that domain. So how can I help the company to grow? So the traction can mean, you know, interviewing customers, having a deep understanding of the domain. Like we have a substantial amount of our investments are in the mobility space because we have top expertise in that domain, for instance. So then we go in and we help to grow the company. We are company builders. After all, I've been building companies, products, and teams for close to 20 years, and only now recently, you know, 1.5 years being here as a partner at Nordic Ninja, kind of you know, work with founders hand in hand. So the traction can mean many things. It's just very hard to kind of generalize to say what you have to have. So that's number one. And then you know, number two, what I would say is that yes, we invest in Series A, Series B, but in the deep tech world, that may be a little bit arbitrary. You may need you know, a 10 million seed round. You may need a 3 million Series A. What does that even mean? So the real question is, you know, how much money do you need to get to the next stage? And is this product or a service that you're building, does this have a global reach? And so when we talk about kind of deep tech and you really want to win, then our goal at Nordic Ninja is plain and simple, but hard to achieve sometimes, which is we are really looking for #1 teams in the world that just happen to be in the Nordics and the Baltics. And that's you know, the alpha and omega of a successful deep tech company. So that's one. I also wanted to point out that, you know, just not for the founders to be intimidated, that sometimes it's a deep tech company is a deep tech company without themselves knowing it, which is you may start out by, you know, innovating a business model. You may start out by providing a fairly complicated service with very simple means, and then with each transaction, each step, it gets more complicated, and that's when you get into deep tech. And there are several examples of this. One of our portfolio companies is Verif, so is Super Angel. So, you know, that company you know, was started with a very ambitious goal like it is today, but it was started with, you know, fairly simple means just to prove their concept. But with each verification, gets more complicated and more complicated, and at some point it becomes so complicated that no competition can kind of overcome that. And that's one of the reasons why investors like companies in the deep tech space, whether it's front loaded or back loaded, there's a particular moat that you generate that's just very hard to compete with. And yes, the business doesn't really take care of itself, but it's much easier to take care of business if something that you have developed is unique and the best in the world.
Awesome. Thank you for these insights. I wanted to ask Rainer and Donatas also that one way to prove attraction is to have these conditional contracts with clients. That I agree that after 9 months or I don't know 10 months, I start the service to you, or I will provide you a product, and you start paying me these amounts, and service level agreement is such and such. I should provide you this and this. And if for some reason my development doesn't materialize by that time, we just postpone the start of a contract. Are these such contracts really practical, and do they prove something to the investors? Rainer, what's your opinion?
Well, it does prove that you have a relationship with a customer, right? So it's again very hard to generalize. If you're developing a new drug, that means one thing, but if you're developing software, for some sort of analytics on an exclusive data set, then the only way to do that is with a gated approach, that you have some milestones that you set in place. So I think anything that you can prove that you have a relationship is key, and then everything else actually depends on the company, on the market, on the team, and the competition. So it's very hard to generalize. But yes, I would approve, having a relationship like that and having the milestone goals in there.
Thanks. Donatas, what's your opinion on such contracts, or how to prove that traction is there, the problem is real?
So I agree, this is good stuff to show that you have a connection, and probably for me it also shows that you have an understanding of business model and some business people in the team, right? To get to the contract is good stuff. It's good science, and of course it's case by case, right? If you have 10 of them with strong international brands in the field, that's amazing, right? It shows that they believe in you to some extent, and this is something which can materialize. If it's just something with a company of no name, right? It's as Rainer said about LOIs, right? They're useless probably. But yeah, it's a good sign, and I would love to see these kind of contracts in any early stage deep tech company, because it shows a lot of good things if it's real.
Cool. We are running out of time, so last words to the deep tech startups. Rainer.
I would say that don't think about the Series A, Series B. All these labels are kind of useless. Think about where are you in the value chain, and how can you be the best in the world in what you do, and that may mean in the beginning starting from something very small and then gaining value. I think about, as a founder, as a VC, I think about allocation of capital as a means to generate value. What generates the most value in the next 6 months or 12 months, when I get this money? Sometimes we're spending time and money in places that seem important but don't generate value. So just think about that. And when you focus on that and you focus on your end goal, when you're obsessing about the problem, then I think you have a chance. Otherwise, you're just wasting everybody's time.
Thank you, Rainer. I know you have to leave, so I give you a right to leave this call. Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, guys. See you around. Bye.
So, Donatas, what's your last advice or insights to startups?
Probably just two things, as a deep tech usually have a specific business model. So make sure that you understand what is a business model or a dominant business model in your field. That's important to understand from very early. And also don't overlook the IP situation, because, understanding the IP strategy and how to deal with that is important, especially in deep tech. So at some point in the company's life, your patents, your know-how, well documented, might be huge value or very important value. So it's important to understand it from day one and to manage that, right? Not necessary to have patents, that's excluded, right? But just to understand how to manage that and how to treat your know-how, your technology in the light of that. So these two things.
Thank you, Donatas, very much for your time and great insights, and looking forward to seeing you in mentoring sessions.
In 1 hour, thank you, yes.
Thank you. We'll close this workshop right now. We'll have a 1 minute break and we'll continue with next workshop on how to find your 100 key people who could help you further.